Capturing the last images of fall is always fun. I started my painting with a very careful sketch. As you can see, I'm holding the pencil very loosely. I find if I hold the pencil too close or tight that I worry too much about the sketch and then it doesn't form as easily. So I allow myself to make lots of mistakes and just loosely sketch. And then as I feel that the image is becoming clearer, and I will darken the lines a little so that I can see the object. I'm going to be painting around this horse, so I want to see him clearly when I'm putting paint over. Here I'm just applying a little palette knife sky. It's a very, very light sky on this day. And adding some texture to the corn. The corn was tricky. I had to play with the palette knife a little bit and figure out how to get the shapes that I saw in my photograph. And it's fun to mix the colors and see if you can match them too. I really enjoy doing that. Here you can see I'm playing a little. You have to allow yourself to play a little with the paint. I'm playing with the colors and seeing, you know, where they fit and what texture will look right. There's a lot of dark shadow in the bottom of the corn, as you can see through the stems into the darkness. So I added that. A little bit of light to the top of the corn and the sides. There are a lot of crazy busy leaves. I used this different palette knife. I really liked it. It has a short edge and a long edge, so it allows you to create, you know, longer lines or shorter lines. I know this is high speed, so it's tricky to see. Now I'm trying out a very strong color on the top of the corn, which will be dulled down a bit later. And with that short edge, I'm adding some of those little leaves that just kind of pop out in the corn. Using a little sponge, I am creating some texture on the grasses and some of the little bits of foliage around the front of the corn. Just defining the horse and filling in the solid color. It's the main base color of the horse now. Every one of these jobs that you're watching me do took an hour or so to complete or more. It's just high speed with the time lapse. I'm not sure if I think it takes a photo every minute, or I'm not quite certain how often it takes a photo. But I like the time lapse because it allows me to work around noise and you don't hear any of it. So I can keep taking breaks too and then just add the next video on. Here I'm trying to get the feet accurate. Everything is very fine detail, so I have to keep glazing with a little water in my paint to add a little lighter area, a little darker area. I don't want to lose the color of the horse underneath. Some areas need a little bit more care because, well, I'm not familiar with the physiology of a horse, and so I want to be really careful to make sure that I get the light and shadow correct in certain places so the muscle or the bones look accurate. Here you see I'm mixing the paint again because a day has gone by and I had to stop and my paint dried, so I've had to remix the color. So you have to try to get it as close to the original color as possible. Little tiny areas like the eye, the ear, the mouth, care, time, and patience, because you need to be patient, because it does take time to get it just right. And you have to use a very tiny brush and do fine details. I am making some little tutorial clips that are actually at video slow pace, and they will be posted to my YouTube channel, Art with Janine. So what I'm doing now is I'm just getting the little tiny details on the feet, and those little details I was talking about that sort of show the shape of the muscle and the bones. And I'm hoping that anyone who loves and knows horses will see that this is a very healthy horse. I know that, that's why when you're painting animals and stuff, you have to look very closely if you want a realistic look, and try to get it as accurate as possible. Now for the shadow on the ground under the horse. And of course I've gone around and touched up other bits of the painting and just captured, probably 85% of my painting in this video. I have sort of chopped some out in order to not make the video too long. As you can see, there's a lot of touching up, reviewing the photo and going back to the horse and making sure that I can do this as accurately as possible. The horse is the focal point, so you can see that the background is a little fluffy and light and not as in focus. I like that. So I want to make the horse as clear as possible. The shadow can be tricky as well, but you just keep fiddling around with it until it looks just as it does in the photo, or it feels right. Sometimes you have to be brave to add that shadow, because you might create something that looks very nice and then you think, oh, I've got to put black on it, or like a darker shade of this, and I'm worried I'm going to ruin it. But the shadow can really make it pop and come to life, as can the light white, touching up a little bit there and putting some little flowers in the background. Oh, now comes the tail. I'm doing some lines to start that just give me the shape of the tail, and then filling in the areas. And again, I start with a base color that is the majority of the tail, and then I start adding the shadow and the light to it. On first look, the tail might look like it one shape, and then, later I may have to erase some. And if you have to take some off to change the shape, you just use a little bit of water on your brush and then rub that area if it's still fresh. I mean, if it's the next day, you can't do that. You have to paint over with the background color. But if it's still fresh, and the background is solid dry, because it's been dry for, say, a day or two, then you can take a baby wipe or just a little bit of water on your brush, and you can rub with a little bit of water on your brush and just erase them. And it should show the background. As you can see, a lot of time went into the detail on the tail. I'd say it was possibly a good few hours. I got up early one morning and I probably spent a good 3 to 4 hours just on the tail. And the mane also required a lot of time, the better part of a weekend day, Fortunately, I had someone to hang out with my son at the house. Of course, with time-lapse, I could keep pausing it and going and doing things and cooking and stuff like that. With the time-lapse video though, if you only do short periods and pause and short periods and pause, it stretches it into a longer video. But if you sit and do a few hours at a time, I'm just touching up the sky now. You sit and do a few hours at a time, it actually goes at a faster speed for some reason. Yeah, I'm just getting the sky the way I want it. And adding a little more detail here and there. There's going to be things that, you know, you'll leave the painting and come back. And that's always a good idea, to leave your painting after you think it's finished. And then, say, a day later, look at the photo again, look at your picture again, see if there's any areas that you can see need a little bit of improvement. Like, I noticed I needed darker shadows on the legs, a little more light on the back of the horse. I also noticed I needed a little shine on the hair of the mane. So, and touching up the sky like I just did. Things like that I feel could use improvement. So the painting doesn't have to be finished when you go, oh, you know, it's done. You can come back again a few days later and touch up. Just adding these little flowers in the background. You know, sometimes you work on a painting and you get to a point where you're a little tired now, and then it's okay to put it down and kind of come back to it. And there you have it. A beautiful horse in a field. Hope you enjoyed this video.